Welcome to the Eyes of Indigo with your infinitely curious hosts, Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Our show is broadcast live at 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays. Socio-spiritual topics are laced with humor as we discuss weird stuff in a rational way. Learn more about us in our first episode, The Prequel. Shows are recorded and available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, and other aggregators. A keyword searchable index is at iriscarter.com/EOI directory. Share ideas and comments in the program chat or by email. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our show. Let us know you're here by typing your hello in the comments because we are thrilled to welcome you as we begin another adventure right now.
Yay!
Hello!
Hello! Popular way of saying that across the decades nowadays.
I know. It's like, do people even still understand that, you know?
I was going to say there's probably a generation that doesn't understand that reference, but they will. They will. All comic genius survives all time,
True.
which is not me, but I can imitate them. Hi, guys. My name is Margot Ross Sears, and beside me is our co-host and producer, Iris Carter. Welcome to our show, Eyes of Indigo. We're really glad to see you, especially to our regulars. And if you're new to the show, hi, and welcome to the channel. So tonight we've got an interesting topic that is basically a continuance of the last, Iris, what would you say, 2 or 3 shows that we've done?
We did
we did cryptids. We did cryptids and that's true. And Sasquatch and good stuff like that last week. And then before we did a off-planet ET experiencer, Tony Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And then the week before that was Grafton, Illinois.
Yeah. So it has kind of been a rollout.
Grafton, Illinois was all about ETs.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
And we'll say hi to Sherry. So we encourage anybody who's watching, please say hello to us. Let us know you're here. And as we go through and have this discussion, we definitely want you. We're going to keep hounding you to ask questions or to make comments on this stuff, because we don't necessarily expect everybody to agree with us, and it doesn't mean that everything that we throw out there that we're married to either. That we get ideas, we get information, and we're just sharing. So yeah,
and we want you to share as well. Hi, Gigi.
Hey there.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. Hi.
So now we know that Facebook and YouTube are working because each of them are from a different place. So that's good. from
2 different platforms. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that is good confirmation. So tonight's topic, Iris, take it away, please.
Yes, we are going to talk about UAPs, ETs, and interstellar etiquette. I have a little alien on there with his tinfoil hat. So our purpose is we're going to just explore some of the information that we've learned and shared, and maybe give you a few pointers too, or some food for thought that maybe you hadn't considered before, as we hear more and more about
visitors.
Yes.
That may not be visitors actually per se.
And it just seems like
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, things have been ramping up lately, and it's really kind of strange, odd, puzzling, intriguing.
It's intriguing, the resistance, and then the exposure, and then the resistance, and the denial, and then the exposure of more information, and then more denial, and then more exposure. And I'm thinking that's what you mean by strange and odd, because it makes perfect sense that eventually to me, it makes perfect sense. I should qualify that to me, we eventually reestablish communication with our cosmic brothers and sisters and cousins, and it's odd that's taken this long, but Iris, did they wait to have the party until you and I were here?
Hey, maybe. And I heard that.
Cool. Very cool. But more seriously, yeah, with this huge influx of on Earth of baby boomers and indigo children and indigo adults and crystal children, rainbow children, and all that other happy stuff that describes higher awareness beings, it does make sense that they waited till now. And also what post bombing, post nuclear bombs and all the radiation that it generated, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Arizona, Bikini Atoll, and so on and so on and so on. All the nuclear testing sent out radiation so that the rest of the universe became aware that, woohoo, wait a minute, hold on. They're getting into they're over there on Earth is a 3-year-old with a handgun. Somebody take that away.
Yeah. And there have been, I found it interesting. I can't tell you what I was watching. I can't remember, but it was one of those like reveal type programs. Hey, Rosemary. They we're talking to some people that were actually in like a nuclear silo kind of thing and getting ready to do a test. I'm sorry, I just had a light over there anyway, it's not real secure light and it went out on its own.
So that was normal. Okay.
Yeah, it was possible. Let me put it that way. It's not, usually I have it on, but maybe I didn't anchor it right. But anyway, this guy, they had people in the silo and I remember you talking about this one time that people were in the silo,
missile silo,
getting ready to do a missile silo, getting ready to not a corn
as
silo.
opposed to a grain silo. Right? We're going blow grain, popcorn for everybody. Grain whiskey for everybody. Grain alcohol. All right. So he was in a military silo.
So they were getting ready to do a nuclear test, and they had all the stuff was getting ready to launch off, and all of a sudden the equipment just shut down.
Everything's powered down. Hi, Eve.
Mm-hmm. And it's like they know the military and all acknowledged that it was
a fluke.
Yep. That it was not like a power outage or something. You don't just suddenly have a power outage in a missile silo. It was a deliberate shutdown of and also like all that stuff that like North Korea has been threatening, and the government will get us stirred up thinking, oh, we're subject to nuclear attack and they can launch missiles anytime and no, it's not going to happen.
David Wilcox relays stories of military people telling him about silos and nuclear missile stations that just went on alert because Russia did something or China did something or whatever that put them on standby. He tells stories of the same thing at the last minute, everything went down. Stephen Greer mentions stories about he's had military people tell him the same thing. The missiles were being all lined up, fired up, revved up, whatever you call them, the buttons, and UAPs, ETs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, showed up, and all the missiles were made inert. All the power systems went dead. And so that's a multiple story. It's not a one-off. That happens in multiple countries all the time, that anytime anybody goes on nuclear alert at a missile silo. Yeah. We're not allowed to shoot nukes anymore.
No.
Which makes me wonder, there's a lot of submarines and battleships that are powered by nuclear reactors, and they are carrying nuclear warheads. Not that that's an official statement, but yes, they're there. So it would be interesting to hear if there are stories about that happening out at sea around submarines and carriers and battleships that have that capability.
I'm sure it has, and I'm trying. I can't think of a
would've-
specific story, but
Yeah, sooner or later somebody's going to report that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're on that, let's talk about, because we've had, for ages we talked about ETs and UFOs, and those were the terms that, unidentified flying object and extraterrestrials, and now some new terms are coming out, which is also interesting to me. It's like, why are we changing our lingo now? And so are we coming closer to?
Are we being politically correct with our cousins and brothers and sisters all of a sudden? Who don't use language at all? They're all telepathic. Never mind.
Yeah, right. So UAP is unidentified aerial phenomenon, which I guess it kind of does expand it. Instead of just being an object, it's something weird happening, whether it's
a phenomenon.
An item or yeah.
I've heard another interpretation of that of UAP was unidentified astrological phenomenon. So apparently, I see Dr. Michael Salas said that variation. He's a big ET exopolitics kind of talker. Exopolitics is interplanetary politics and government and negotiations. That's what exopolitics means.
Yeah.
So he used the word astral instead of aerial. Roughly the same thing. Roughly. Yeah.
And I've seen ETs, but then I saw ETI, extraterrestrial intelligence, instead of just an extraterrestrial.
You know what, Stephen Greer and David Wilcox and Corey Good and all those ET experiencers, you know what they say, you know what? Call them people. Just across the board, call them people. That seems to be the only phrase that doesn't offend everybody. Because they are. They're people just like us.
Well,
they're not they're people doesn't mean human.
That's true. It's a populace of some sort.
Yeah. They're extraterrestrial just means they don't live on this planet. They're still beings, sentient beings, similar to us in some ways. People. Talk to them. Yeah, you can call ETI is an excellent extraterrestrial intelligence. That's assuming that they have intelligence like us. According to Tony Rodriguez, no, some of them are less intelligent than us. Yeah.
Yeah. But he also talks about how some of them look at us like we're complete idiots too. And
they're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
To an extent. Yeah, they're to an extent. And we know there are exceptions. I'm just being facetious. But yeah, they're the chain of who's smarter than who still exists out there in the fourth, fifth, and third dimension. You don't get into spiritual intelligence apparently until you get to 5 and above. Fifth dimension and above. If you're wondering what I'm referring to with this third, fourth, and fifth dimension, please see earlier episodes that Iris and I have done in the past, specifying what is the third, fourth, and fifth. Yeah, 4D, 5D, 3D, what all that stuff is. Yeah. Back to the topic.
So we were talking about too that there's some things kind of I guess this is where we're kind of expanding on some of the things that Tony talked about last week, but recognizing that there are different levels of intelligence and comparing that to how we treat animals. And in fact, I found this article, and it's just like 2 quick paragraphs that I want to read, and it's out of scientificamerican.com, and it's astroethics and cosmocentrism is the name of the article. And it says the problems involving ET life are particularly fraught, especially if it talks back to us. Before we can act in any situation that involves life, it is first important to assess the moral status of the organisms involved. This is no easy task since we are ambiguous about relations with animals on Earth. On the one hand, sheltering them as beloved pets, and on the other hand, and rather arbitrarily, hunting, eating, and exterminating them. But a good deal of thought has been given to the subject of the moral status of Earth organisms and the idea of intrinsic value on which it is often based. Contemplating encounters with alien life tremendously expands our ethical horizons. The case of intelligent aliens also encompasses not just the problem of how we might treat them, but also how they might act or react. In other words, it's not just a question of our ethics. What about their
ethics? Right.
Is there any basis for inferring whether alien intelligence might be good or bad? On Earth, we exhibit a mix of altruism and evil. But is there any reason to believe altruism has triumphed among extraterrestrials? Might there be such a thing as a universal ethics in the form of a universal golden rule or a reverence for life? Or is Star Trek's prime directive of non intervention a naive one way street, a recipe for our own extinction? Does the arc of the moral universe indeed bend toward justice? So, yeah, that's, I mean, and I know
that's a brilliant
really
statement.
packed.
Yeah.
But when we think about, and I made this point right before we got on air was, you look at an anthill and we just assume all those ants are the same and that they're thinking and doing and just robotic in nature. But are they? Because all of a sudden one ant will decide to go over here and explore this kitchen cabinet, and then everybody else starts following. He sends out little pheromones or whatever, and they, woo, let's go see what he's got, and then you got ants all over the cabinet and you're just squashing them going. But one of them had to have the idea to go off in a different direction. So what makes
you want to talk to that guy? Invite him in for a drink.
Yeah. I'll pour a little booze in a little capsule for you.
Right. Pull up a breadcrumb. Let's have a talk.
And I mean, and that sounds insane, And today,
no, it doesn't.
Today I was at a job fair. It was an outdoor job fair for my day job. And we were there promoting the services that we offer at the community college. And the woman, I had a woman co-hosting the booth with me, and she was talking to a woman that was standing there, and they were having this conversation, and all of a sudden the one went, kind of, and it was a little spider just crawling across, and so I'm like, oh, come here. And so I ended up having to get up and corral the spider, and I took him over to a grassy area and let him go. And one woman looked at me and she was like, she said, I'd kill it, and I'm like, well, I get that, but I don't pick up just every spider. I mean, if it looks like a brown recluse or it looks like if I know it's a black widow, I'm not going to pick it up. But for the most part, most spiders around here that they just drop on your table, they're fine. Go let them do their thing. About 20 minutes later, the woman that was co-hosting the booth with me, she's like, there he is again. And she had a newspaper, whackity, whackity, whack. And I'm like, well, I guess we warned him. I tried, little fella. I tried. Bless
Your brother did not tell you about these crazy humans we're dropping on.
Yeah.
The word did not get out. Yeah.
And so it's like, but again, and they're like, no, it was the same one. And I thought, now you didn't want to look at it enough to figure out what kind of spider it was to keep from hitting it. That now you suddenly know it's the same one.
It's not, it doesn't have wings. It didn't go, yeah. Mm-mm.
So it was just, but it's like,
it was her knee-jerk reaction. It was her knee-jerk reaction to something she perceived as less intelligent, therefore less valuable than her.
So there you go. If people in general, people make that assumption all the way. There's lots of people you see them online talk about, especially in this time of year, snakes, kill them all. And it's like, no, please leave my black snakes alone because I love them. They get the mice, and that kind of thing. But people freak out. They think every other snake is a water moccasin. And it's like, you don't even live in an area near water or whatever. And they don't try to learn about them. They just want to kill them. Well, hello, this is this is human reactions, and we go, oh, well, this is normal. Well, what are we looking at when somebody's coming from somewhere else?
And it is also something unknown.
Yeah.
Because people don't do the research about snakes. Well, they also don't know as much about, off-planet people, ET people. And so what we don't know, we react in fear, which means fight. And fight or flee. And most of the time they'll fight, which is what that whole killing thing is. It's fighting.
Yeah.
It's a knee-jerk reaction that we're going to have to get past.
Exactly. And just as what's to keep them, how do we know that they don't have the same knee-jerk reaction? And let's see, Sherry says, if you want a snake to live, then you need to come and take it away. I'm fine with that. It just doesn't get to stay where I am.
And that's how I feel about spiders. I'm fine with spiders as long as it's not right where I am. It needs to move on. So yeah, I have Tupperware to catch and release.
I saw a video the other night, and I thought I was just cracking up. Somebody had a ceiling fan, and the little cap that goes between, that covers all the wires in the ceiling, it had come loose. And a snake was coming out of it and was wrapped around the base of the ceiling fan. And the ceiling fan's on, and this guy is sitting in his chair filming this thing, right? And the snake tries to like go out across the fan blades, and then it's like it realizes it can't, and it comes back. And so the guy's thinking, oh, I'm safe here. I'm just, filming this thing. It goes out the other way, and all of a sudden the fan catches it just right, and it goes and flings it right at him.
Of all directions, it flung it straight at the camera. This is what you get for laughing at me. Boom. Poor Snakey.
I know, poor little guy. Flying.
Really, he was probably freaked out too.
Yeah.
So are anything else about terminology?
No.
Before we shift on.
I think I've covered it. Y'all tell us. Is there anything you've heard that you wonder what it's about?
So guys, let me put this out to you guys as an audience. Dr. Stephen Greer, he just did a big disclosure for 3 hours in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club. It was a big deal on June 12th, 2 days ago. You can see it on YouTube now, Greer, Greer. And he uses the term EBANs, to talk about non-Earth people. And I cannot remember what EBAN stands for. If any of you know or remember or can find it online, because I looked and I could not find what an EBAN, and I think it's spelled EBN, letter N is in Nancy, and he's pronouncing an EBAN like that, but I'm not positive. If y'all know, please chime in, type in the comments. We appreciate it. And of course, there's a ton of other terminologies for that. Little gray men, men from Mars, Martians, Venusians. So there's all kinds of terms that are archaic like that as well.
Yeah.
Grays, Nordics and grays are also terms that you hear widely, because something that Iris pointed out, maybe it was before the show, there is more than one type of ET out there. They're not all little green guys. They're not all tall blonde people. They're not all communion book cover, giant green or gray egg with big black almond eyes and a slit for a mouth that talk telepathically, and they're only 3 feet tall. The movie Paul, Paul, is a comedy that actually has a lot of reveals in it about an alien that learned to speak English and escaped and ran around with 2 guys across the Midwest in their RV. So they don't all look like that. Some of them have they look like all kinds. There's ones that look like human cats. There's ones that look like human crickets. There are ones that are called reptilians. That's another one. Obviously, what you can probably imagine, it looks like a lizard human. There's banana heads. There's guys and girls, but there's people with long, curved, pale yellow, pointed, smooth heads and mostly smooth face, but they do have eyes and mouth. and they're called banana heads. Guess what they call us, Iris? Naked apes.
Oh,
Yeah, so Greys are called Greys, Nordics are called Nordics, banana heads are called banana heads, and humanoids are called naked apes. Because that's what they resemble, and no people aren't offended by that.
Deborah says, don't the ETs have some splaining to do with decades of cattle mutilations, abductions, etc., before we naturally treat them with hospitality rather than hostility? And that is an excellent question. And actually, there's a couple of layers to that one from my perspective. For one thing, one of the things that we've heard is that the government has imitated some things to deliberately scare us, that they know all this shit's going on. And so like movies like Independence Day and
Invasion from Mars,
yeah,
the Tom Cruise movie.
yeah,
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds.
Yeah, all those, they are designed by Hollywood to scare the shit out of us so that if we ever encounter aliens, we're automatically scared and want to run, and we don't want to interact with them.
And we won't learn anything.
Right. So some of those, like some of the stereotypical abductions that you heard about, like back in the 60s and 70s, may have been actual government things, not
human government, not ET government.
Right. Then you've got some that are not benevolent, that are doing things. And cattle mutilations, I don't think that's necessarily ET.
That's almost always a human scare tactic to mutilate them, because ETs have the technology far beyond us that they can scan life forms and get samples of DNA if they want, without the earth being, animal, cattle, human, even knowing that it happened. All right, they can do all this stuff. So things like abduction, so it's more than just cattle mutilations. It's stories of abductions. They were almost always done by under the radar, above the law groups that have the technology to pretend to be ETs to get that information out there. Now, there is an exception that has to do with Eisenhower back in the late 50s. Iris, you're aware of what I'm talking about?
I can't remember what you're referring to.
There is you can look it up. There is a very popular story that has been justified and verified over and over, that ET, malevolent, ill-intentioned, self-serving, let's call it self-serving ETs made an agreement with the current government, world governments. At the time, the US was the biggest, but China and Russia were in on this too. In the late 50s, they made agreements. We will give you technology if you let us quietly harvest a few DNA samples and take a few people. And that was agreed upon illegally, quietly, and that's the story. And that Eisenhower went on to regret that. So apparently remember, there's more than one type of ET. There's more than coming from more than one type of star system. Therefore, totally different culture, totally different value system. The ones that were in service to self took advantage of that and have exploited it to maintain fear and an image of mystique and danger on Earth, so that these service to self beings can keep doing what they want, and humans won't look at them because they're too scary. All right. And that came out of the 1950s. Feel free to look that story up.
Yeah, and So when you think about, what do they have to answer to, at the same token, what do we have to answer to? What do we do that some would look at and go, what the hell are y'all doing? How can you treat some animals this way and some animals that way, just like we have a hierarchy? It would be confusing to them. There's a lot of things that are going on with them that we wouldn't understand. Different cultures, different socio dynamics. So, we can't assume that every ET out there can reason like we do, or at the same token, a lot of times we have a hard time thinking on another level. I mean, good God, look at the issues that we have with racism. Where people can't, some people look at people with a different skin color and think automatically that something is.
I'll let her try again. Go ahead. Rosemary, try again. Your sentence doesn't make sense yet.
Oh, okay. But that, when you are looking at another human being and automatically thinking, we have people that go to the Amazon. I mean, even drug companies. I mean, I know this from a pharmacist that's
you're talking about coming up on primitives, discovering primitive cultures, and or indigenous. We should say indigenous cultures. Yeah, not primitive.
Indigenous cultures. The like these medical companies will go in and like get these shamans, medicine men's recipes, and then redo it in the lab and make billions of dollars off of these curatives that they found in the Amazon rainforest. And they treat them like they're idiots, and they don't give them any, they'll give them hats and T-shirts to appease them. And, and they'll go, oh, look at these men that came, and these are great men, and they must be, and the idiots with the cash cow,
Yeah, Manhattan Island exchanged for beads.
Yeah.
To the Manhattan Indians. Yeah.
And so if we treat each other that way, what does somebody that's coming from a different planetary system coming in and looking and going, well, shit, we can do whatever we want to with them because they don't give a shit about each other.
Right. Humans are typically hostile. But you mentioned a great example. The way we treat animals is not only inconsistent, but it's also not kind for the most part. Not everybody's that way, but there's a lot to prove the opposite. Also, how we treat our own children.
Yeah,
is seen as can be seen as anywhere from abusive to outright horrendous. How we treat each other, violence against women, violence against minorities, ethnocentrism, people that live outside of your nation. You're trained, you're conditioned to be patriotically hostile towards outsiders, or a different political belief. Or let's talk about in Ireland, Catholics versus Protestants. They will kill each other without ever saying a word as soon as they find out the other person is, and that's less common, but it still happens. But back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, you kill somebody. If you're a Protestant and you meet a Catholic, you kill him with no questions asked. All right, and both ways, the Catholic will try to kill you too.
Yeah.
All right, it was the assumption. And that's just a religion. That's the same religion. That's both Christianity. The deviation is actually very, very minimal. All right, so what else have we done? We blow nukes. We've been blowing nukes and nuking the shit out of the earth. But the problem is, a good example being CERN, CERN, up in Switzerland.
Switzerland. Which I just saw a memo about Geneva. When you think about all of the things that are based out of Geneva, Switzerland, holy shit. the World Economic Forum, the CERN. There's a ton of stuff. It's like, what the hell? Okay, so Rosemary just watched this movie with Keanu Reeves called The Day the Earth Stood Still, and yes, I think it was some soft reveals, and it was an alien coming to examine to see if we were worth saving or not. You know, he came to destroy the planet and had to find somebody that it was sort of like Whoville. It reminded me of Whoville. You know, we're here, we're here, we're here.
We're here. I was gonna say that's a common theme. Star Trek did that one with the whales.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They had to go find humpback whales that could sing the right song underwater so that the probe would not come and would go away and not blow up Earth in the past. And so they did time travel, and there was soft reveal and hard reveal all through those movies. All of Star Trek movies do that. So yes, thank you, Rosemary. That's perfect. That's a great example of that. Yeah, humans are questionable. Take that back. Let me put this in a better way. The human race is questionable. Humans themselves are not inherently evil, but they are fear-based. And they do get hostile when they don't understand. They've been trained to kill it if you don't understand it.
Well, look at Planet of the Apes, where
Yes.
you know and granted, now since the originals, they've come out with like the precursors to how it started, which is interesting. But in general, like the old Charlton Heston movie, where you know everything was reversed and the apes were in control, and man was seen as a vicious wild beast that needed to be controlled or enslaved, which is very indicative of how man acts.
Let's talk horses.
Ooh.
That's exactly what we've done with horses and other humans. We enslave. That's another travesty we didn't mention. We enslave each other constantly. The biggest one right now is human trafficking in general, mostly children and women. However, men are not exempt.
No.
At all. So yeah, we do that to each other as well
And
as animals.
and not to mention corporate slavery.
White collar crime. Yet another one.
Getting us to do work, and we're taxed on what we were taxed on the money we earn, we're taxed on the money we spend, we're taxed on the things we own already that we've already paid tax on.
Yep. And we're taxed annually again and again and again for like cars and real estate. On and on and on. So yeah, that's corporate enslavement. That's an excellent example. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, so we've thrown it completely out there. Maybe humans are not necessarily worthy of deciding hostility versus hospitality. Because we're in service to self as well. Not all of us, but a lot of us are. And so that plays into a lot to, well, what would be basic etiquette for communicating with a off-planet person with an E-band?
Yeah. And I'm just trying to throw this out.
Yes, please do.
It's two aliens talking to a man who's walking his dog, and their spaceship's all in the air. The aliens say, "We don't like the term invasion. We prefer galaxy gentrification."
Indeed. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then imagine if you went up to the pearly gates, and this guy's it's a man and a woman, and they're being met at the pearly gates by a green alien with the typical big black eyes. Mm-hmm. Look, I'd like to let you in, but you were very adamant about not believing in aliens. Yeah, who else is up there when we get there, right?
Yeah, when you die and go to heaven, do you really think it's all going to be humanoids? God made a whole lot more than just humans and mammals and birds and insects. Yeah, a lot more.
So interesting stuff to think about.
Food for thought.
Yes. Okay. So one thing, I mean, in spite of what we've kind of said, I liked what you talked about, Margot, one time that kind of led to this topic. is how fear can cause them physical pain.
Yes.
And it's, so do that comparison that you have.
So there are, and we'll talk about this in a minute, there are methodologies to create a benevolent contact with a higher life form and call them in, and Iris is going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But what a lot of people who have tried these methodologies or attempted to found out that the extraterrestrial people didn't respond or refused to respond or showed up briefly and left. And similar to that, it was obvious the ET people were trying to get away from us. And so the question was why? So these people that are experiencers that know how to raise their vibration, they know how to, they've done this repeatedly, they have a rapport and a relationship, can have asked them, what's the deal? And essentially the beings that are, let's say, a higher consciousness, that are more benevolent, that are in service to others, they also, as you can imagine, vibrate higher than we do. Okay, such as in our terminology, maybe a fifth dimension, sixth dimensional creature. In reference, most people on Earth are 3 or 4D. All right, 3 or 4. Plants and animals are considered 2D, and the elements, fire, water, air, those things are considered 1D. And that ties into what I'm going to say next. So the reason they came back with why they don't stick around or why they refuse to talk to us or they're slow to show up is because for them, experiencing human emotion is actually painful to them, especially fear or anger. Fear and nervousness and afraid and, ooh, I might meet an alien. This is freaking me out. I'm excited, but I'm scared. I'm scared, but I'm excited. That litany of feelings and thoughts, remember, they're very telepathic. They are also very empathic. They don't necessarily hear the words, but they feel the vibration of fear and intrepidation. And they describe it as that is physically painful to them, so much so they can't stand it. It's not tolerable. They have to get away. Okay, it actually hurts. Scared humans are painful to these benevolent beings. Now, there are ET beings that want you to be afraid, and they actually feed off of that negative energy. That is another conversation. Back to where we were. How do we brain wrap somebody else's emotions being painful to the observer? And that's where the conversation went with me and Iris and I, speak English, honey, where Iris and I went, and an analogy came to my mind, which was, well, where else does that happen? Where else is that mirrored in the universe? It's a holographic universe. If it happens one place, it also happens somewhere else on a bigger or micro or macro scale. And the analogy I came up with was, as 3D beings, if we try to get immersed with a 1D being, it'll actually hurt us and or kill us. Such as a 1D being is fire. You can be near fire. You can actually get pretty close to it, but if you touch it, it will hurt you. If you get immersed in it, it will kill you. Same thing with water. Same thing with too much air, and so on and so on.
A rock upside the head.
A rock, yeah, earth. Boom, earth. You get buried, you get immersed in earth, you're dead. And now you got a conflict that way too. The pressure alone will kill you, much less suffocation. But it's easier to talk about this in terms of fire and water and air. So that's a real good example of something with a lower vibration can physically cause you excruciating to the pain to the point that you have to leave or stop the interaction to survive, or just not to suffer anymore. So, fire, you got to let go of it. You got to put it down. You got to blow it out.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. Swim up to the surface and have some air, because if you get immersed in water, it will hurt and it will kill you if you get completely immersed in water, as in inhaling it, to be specific. So, hi, Lisa. Good to see you down there.
Yeah.
So, guys, feel free to ask questions and jump in with comments at any time, or examples of what you can think of, or what thoughts you're getting inspired to have. We love it when you share. And
I do want to talk a little bit. Stephen Greer, you mentioned him earlier, so I just created this. First of all, who is he? He's an American ufologist. He founded the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Disclosure Project, which seeks the disclosure of alleged classified information, UFO information. He was born in Charlotte, went to Appalachian State University in North Carolina, and then graduated from the College of Medicine of East Tennessee State University. And he worked as an emergency room physician. And about 10 years after that, he retired as a physician in favor of his ufology activities.
Transcendental meditation.
He studied transcendental meditation. He also saw an UFO at close range when he was 8 years old, and then saw another one when he was 35. So he's been married, children, grandchildren, all that stuff. And there are some movies, like you can find them on different channels, like Netflix has some of the disclosure films and stuff. You can learn more about him, and he talks to different people and all that stuff. So very interesting films. The other thing I wanted to show you, since we were talking about it, oops, don't want that. I'm trying to get over here to my screen. This is, he's got and let me take off the,
he's got a cell phone app you can use.
Yeah, and it's called CE5 Contact. And this is a picture of it from the website. And what I thought was interesting, we've heard of, well, you may, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and that sort of thing. They explains here CE1, it's a close encounter. 1 is a sighting of an ET craft. Close encounter 2 is the physical evidence of a craft. Close encounter 3 is the sighting of a life form. CE4 is experience on an onboard an ET craft. And then CE5, which is the name of this app, is human initiated contact with ETs. And they actually give you an equipment list, things to read, libraries. Yeah, and it's like a $10 app. Now, I'm not saying we are not promoting this in any way. We wanted to share that because that was something that Stephen Greer had promoted. The thing,
it has good reviews, and it's espoused a lot of success, and people have amazing experiences using it.
But the other thing is, remember, we're not necessarily the least intelligent. And if you don't know who I wouldn't do this ever in the backyard by myself.
Yeah, and it says don't do it alone.
Yeah.
It says don't do it alone, never do it alone.
When you start calling in, you don't know what you're asking for. It's kind of like playing with a Ouija board.
Ooh, that's a good analogy. It's like a modern Ouija board, but now it's for benevolent reasons, but it's still the same lack of filter.
I mean, even when people used to get Ouija boards, they were like, "Oh, let's talk with the spirits and get answers and all this," and then all of a sudden, it's Satan on the board. And boy, I can tell you some scary stories.
Demons come.
Yeah, but if you're going out there and calling out ETs, I'm here, do you remember on Here we go. I just told you it's not a good. I mean, it's a movie deliberately to scare you. But on Independence Day, the girls got the sign up on top of the building. We're here. We want to meet you. Boom, she gets hit with a laser. You know, it's like,
We love you. Boom, sister.
yeah. You don't know what you're calling in. You don't go out in the street and holler for just any random person to come into your house. You don't go, doors open, people. Come in. Let me feed you. Let's watch TV together or play Monopoly. You don't do that. Why would you do that in your backyard calling in ETs? Or why would you do that with a Ouija board calling in any kind of spiritual
Energies.
entity? Yeah. You don't know
Don't.
if you don't know what you're dealing with, get to know somebody who knows something
Avoid.
first.
Right. Avoid doing that. Yeah, try it with experienced people and aim for high vibrations. Very high vibrations.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, Sherry made a good comment on that ties back to a little bit about being painful to talk to humans. She said, I was thinking it was more along the lines of how painful it is to witness someone else being in fear, pain, or grief, especially when you care for their well-being. Sherry, I think that's a beautiful concept, and I completely understand. And I bet you there are benevolent ETs that experience that.
Just like we're empathic.
Right. We're just, and that's exactly what it's called. It's called empathy. Now, that's assuming that other life forms have empathy. That might be a human trait, might be. Or it might be a trait that only some entities have, and humans are one of them. Can't guarantee that. Apparently, ETs, that empathy is not the question. It's actual, they got them to describe it. They actually physically feel pain like they're effing dying when they get around scared, fearful humans. It physically hurts like somebody just beat the crap out of them. They can't do it. So it's not an emotional hurt. It's actually physically hurting them. Yeah. So thank you. That's a good clarification, Sherry. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want to you don't want to assume that they're all alike, just like we're not all alike.
Not everybody's empathic.
Yeah. And not everybody's kind, and not everybody's, and it's also possible to go into an area. I heard a funny story about a couple of guys that I know that when they were in their teen years, they got drunk and they decided they wanted to score some weed. And so they went into the projects.
Drunk, white and drunk, not a good combination in the projects.
One of the worst ones in the town. And they got there, and then they were sitting in the car going, "What are we going to do now, dude? I don't know, And I think they ended up passing out, and they woke up the next morning with some guy knocking on their window. It was an older black male. What the hell are you white dudes doing in this neighborhood? And they told him, and he said, wait a minute. And they actually gave him money. And they said, well, he's probably gone now because he was gone for a while. And he came back. He said, here you go. Now get out of here.
It was a business deal. He wasn't going to ruin his rep by absconding with the money.
But, and you think of, anybody could have come down that street and shot and killed him. It just happened that they were lucky enough that somebody who was benevolent and just thought these crazy white dudes are here and wasn't so scared of them, not realizing who knows? I wouldn't walk up to somebody who's sleeping in a car because they might shoot me, even if it is my neighborhood. So
tap on the window and duck.
It takes a lot of trust on both sides for that transaction to have occurred.
You got to use your intuition.
Yeah, but you also can't be stupid and just go and ask for it,
And you made a brilliant statement. I asked you to write it down. What was it?
God.
And it was along the lines of what you just said.
You got to know the difference between fear and caution.
Bill. More Bill.
You don't, yeah. I mean, there is, you can't live in fear all the time. You have to live your life, and we have to go on. Aliens may land tomorrow. They're already here, if you want to think about that, in different forms and formats and different ways and that sort of thing. Yeah. Keep those antenna down, right? And I've actually, well, I won't give it, okay. But I know people who've seen things. I've seen things.
Tweet.
Yeah. But you also, you want to be cautious, and you don't go running out in the middle of the highway and assume that nobody's going to hit you.
You don't go running out in the middle of the meadow in the middle of the night and call in just any old ET.
Yeah. But you can't live your life in your house in fear and lock all the doors and go
either.
Yeah, stay away. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, there's one thing about being fearful, but caution is, caution and practicality, I think.
We strongly recommend baby steps.
Yes.
Progress forward at a reasonable rate. Yeah. For your belief system, your understanding. Yeah.
And we don't know which race came first. We don't know who the
Define
first race race.
Human
as
race?
in what we do, and we don't, and then alien race or ETs or, which planetary people evolved first. We don't know. And who knows, just because one group of people or ETs or whatever you want to call them learn to live one way, and maybe they're older, it doesn't mean that it's the way that's benevolent to everybody.
Our definition of benevolent is not necessarily their definition of benevolent.
Yeah. And then we learned from Tony last week that a lot of them judge based on your communication skills. What is it? The average human knows 250,000 words or something like that?
The average human uses 50,000.
50,000.
50,000, and that's the average human. And for the ETs, for the beings, for the celestial beings, or what I'm still getting used to, E-bands, let's use that word. The E-bands that he was with, they were, an average conversation was 350 words.
350,000.
And that was considered average. So on up from there.
Yeah, a million words.
Vocabulary.
And then the ones that were like considered superior were the ones that could give telepathic whole ideas in one blast,
And one blast. Ooh, their soft reveal Spock with that mind meld thing that he used to do.
Yeah.
He could drop a whole concept, a whole experience, a whole lifetime. He transferred his whole consciousness into Dr. McCoy in that series as well, in one shot, in one touch. So that's another soft reveal for that capability.
Right. So
the Vulcan mind meld, that's what it was. Vulcan mind meld. That's what they called it.
Long and
live long and prosper. We used to do this as kids to compete and see who could do it. And apparently I have a muscle memory for it. Did you know that this is actually a part of Jewish tradition in worship and prayer in the temple? Yes, this is actually a secret hand symbol during a certain part of the temple worship service. Everybody's supposed to close their eyes and look down while the chant and the prayer is being said by the rabbi or rabbis up front. And you're not supposed to look up. You're not supposed to, you're supposed to be looking down and being reverent. And several Jewish people have talked about when they were little kids, they did look up and they were doing this. The rabbis are holding their hands like this in the air as if they are beaming energy at the congregation. And what they're doing is Well, the explanation is that they're blessing them. But this is a secret handshake. Guess what religion Spock is? Leonard Nimoy. Guess what that name is?
I don't know.
He's Jewish. Guess who brought that into the show? That was not Gene Roddenberry's idea. It was Nimoy's.
Wow.
Nimoy brought that into his character. Yeah. Because he peaked. He looked up when he was a little kid. Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's actually, that's a high Jewish secret sign.
Well, now it's not so secret. At least
not so secret anymore. Well, yeah, Nimoy talks about it.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
But in his day,
he
he
could be
talked
up
about
there,
it.
Yeah. But yeah, so hopefully y'all got some interesting food for thought out of our discussion today. And let's look at what's coming up. We've got next week, we're doing our psychic readings. So bring your questions and we'll do the mini readings like we've done before. And on June 28th, we're going to talk about books on fire, basically the practice of banning books and what
Some
that means.
Some of our favorites.
Yeah.
that we highly recommend you avoid the ban, ignore the ban, and entertain your brain.
Exactly.
Lena, you are very welcome. You're very welcome, sweetheart. Yeah.
So thanks to everybody for tuning in and watching, and be sure to like, share, save, subscribe, whatever you want to call it. Throw them all out.
I want to throw this out real quick. I forgot to mention this. If you're in the Sunset Beach area, I am holding 2 workshops, one on June 24th and one on June 30th. If you're interested, one's on a Friday, one's on a Saturday. If you're here near Sunset Beach at the state line between North Carolina and South Carolina, please feel free to sign up. Go to my website, indigoanswers.com, and see the details for what exactly these 2 events are for. They're both only a couple hours long. They're very popular. They're both backed by demand. So go check out indigoanswers.com. And if you're interested in the services that Iris offers, she is at iriscarter.com too. Yay!
Yes.
Thank you for your patience, guys. We love you. Namaste.
Good night. And whoops, wait a minute. I'm getting there, folks. It's doing something weird. I know.
Barbell.
Right. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you for joining the Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod. Find us at facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo, on YouTube under @Iris Carter Enterprises, and on various podcast aggregators. Copyright 2023 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears.